Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives yesterday released a report, A Rising Tide to Lift All Boats. Joining me to talk about this is the author of the report, Rebecca Casey, who's a sociology professor at Acadia University as well. Rebecca, thanks for doing this. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. So first off, this report, who commissioned it? Well, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives commissioned it, but why is it important that this type of report is delivered and this information is disseminated out there?
Right, so a report similar to this one and that I built this report off of was done in 2012, looking at labor standards, and we haven't really talked too much about them since that time period. And in the last couple of years, other jurisdictions have been doing some modernization of their own legislation and trying to keep the labor standards legislation up with the changing workplace, so more precarity in the labor market. So I think now is a good time for Nova Scotia to be having these discussions and looking at how we can strengthen the legislation, because it really hasn't had a major overhaul since the 70s. So it's time that we made these changes. Okay, so Nova Scotia's workers falling behind, not all workers. Which particular sectors are the most impacted here? Right, so a lot that are excluded even from the standards that are covered under the legislation, and some that we should be worried about are those in the precarious employment. So we have fishing, forestry, and farming. So these are some of the more vulnerable workers. Are they, in many cases, temporary workers? Yes, that's another group that would be vulnerable. Okay. So when it comes to vulnerable, is it the amount of hours that they work? I'm reading that some of these workers are working an average, I think it's 48 hours a week as opposed to kind of 40 being the norm, not being paid overtime. These are, what are some of the key problems that your report identifies here? Right. So in Nova Scotia, the work week is 48 hours, which is much longer than other jurisdictions. So where other provinces may get overtime after 40 hours, our workers here in Nova Scotia have to wait until they work 48 hours. So that's a potential loss of income for workers. And also we have low rates of public holidays. We have the lowest in Canada. And so workers are missing out on not just the time off work, but also that pay. And we also have our vacation leave. We don't have as much time available here in Nova Scotia as well. And we do have one of the longest lists of exemptions and special rules in Nova Scotia. Ontario also has a really long list. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about holidays, you're talking about statutory holidays, are you? Yes, that's right. Okay, so we have fewer stat holidays than anybody else in Canada. Is that what you said? Right, we're one of the lowest. One of the lowest, okay. So is one of the issues that the statutory holidays that we do have, that many of these workers in some cases don't understand or don't know that they have stats that they're obligated to get, that they're entitled to get, and aren't? Is that a problem as well? As far as I know, it is a problem. That doesn't get tackled too much in this report because I didn't have the data to support that. But Larry Haven, who was at the launch yesterday, mentioned that there is evidence that a lot of workers, especially in retail industry, that they're not getting paid for Christmas Day, for example, and maybe aren't even aware that they should be getting that pay. So this is obviously part of what we're doing. When it comes to vacation days, same thing, that some workers just aren't getting vacation days, or not the number that they should. This is happening, is it? So I don't have evidence to prove that that's not happening. I mean, I think that getting their 4% vacation pay tacked on to their paycheck is hopefully happening for most workers. Yeah. But I think another benefit of this report is maybe to educate employees so that they know what their rights are and what they should be entitled to, because it is hard to know about all your rights in the workforce. Who's monitoring this type of thing to make sure that employers are indeed notifying? Is there a grievance process that's in place? How does this all work? What's in place? Well, right, so most jurisdictions have, it's based on complaint process. You as a worker, employee, has to file a complaint against your employer if you feel that your rights have been compromised and that they're not following with the labor code. Also, there are inspections that can occur. They may be random inspections, so someone can come in from a labor and look at to see whether look at records and look at whether vacation pay is being given, if statutory holiday pay is being provided to workers. I don't know how frequently these inspections occur in Nova Scotia. I have a better background in some of this in Ontario, where we know that they need to improve their inspections because so many people don't complain. Because they don't know, or they're scared, they're worried they'll lose their job.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. A minimum wage, this is another ongoing issue. What's your report talk about when it comes to minimum wage?
So I recommend a $15 per hour minimum wage rate, which is only available right now to adult workers in Alberta. I think it's still far below the living wage that you need, or even the wage required to rent a two-bedroom apartment in Halifax, but I think that it can be attainable to increase the wage rate to $15.
Okay, what about the employers that would tell you here in this local area that in many cases their margins are very small, and any raise like that they just simply couldn't afford, and it would in some cases put people out of business? What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, those same arguments were happening in Ontario when they increased it to $14, that people were worried that they wouldn't be able to support that raise, and they have been able to do it. I mean, there will be some businesses that will struggle more than others, but there is evidence to show that when you pay your workers more, productivity increases, people are more loyal. I think it'll be better for retaining workers, because if you have someone who's working here in Nova Scotia for a minimum wage job, there's not much holding them here. They could go to, say, Ontario or Alberta and make $14 or $15 an hour. So what can we do here to make sure that we keep our workers? And that's just one way.
So are we improving at all? Because look, I've been in this business a long time now, and we've been having these similar conversations with groups like yours and others, and are we making any progress? Is there anything positive that we can get out of all of this?
Yeah, so we have seen some improvements here in Nova Scotia. So we removed the eligibility requirement for parental leave, maternity leave. We're one of the few jurisdictions that actually has removed that, and that's really great, and we should be proud of that step that we've taken. Also, we do have a domestic violence leave here, which includes paid leave, which is one of the few leaves that does provide a paid leave for employees. So that, again, that's great for workers here in Nova Scotia. And again, we also do have the unjust dismissal clause for people who've worked 10 years or more in a job, but they can't just be fired. And actually, we're one of few jurisdictions that provides that. The federal government has something similar. My report argues we should drop it from 10 to 3 years, but I think the fact that we have this is important for our workers.
Is this report available online anywhere, Rebecca?
It is. Yes, it is. It's available with the CCCA Nova Scotia.
Great.
Website.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We'll talk again.
Okay, thanks very much.
Take care. Rebecca Casey, author of the report we've been talking about. Actually, I believe I put her on hold. Let me get rid of that line. Okay. Couple of comments. Let's start with Glenna. Glenna, you wanted to comment on that chat?
Yes, I would like some information on, we have a union, but we have casuals. And since we had a long time bargaining, the casuals, of course, were not back paid because they're not in the union. Is there any way that I can help them through some system?
Yeah,
Human rights?
Well, I can't answer that. The guest is gone. So that was a question for the guest, was it, or not a comment?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I apologize.
That's okay, Todd.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. And Tony, if you have a question for the guest, I apologize. She's gone. Otherwise, do you want to make a comment?
Well, I'll make a comment and hope she's listening. How are you this morning, Todd?
I'm well. Yourself?
Pretty good, thank
Great.
you.
Go ahead.
My comment is that included in this holidays that they're suggesting, and I agree with everything they're doing, but I think they should be including Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, shutting everything down at 4, to give more equality with the workers and time home with their families.
Okay, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. And perhaps that's something that people want to talk about during the call-in segment of the show. Do we need more holidays? I don't know that we do, to be quite honest with you.